There are 14 different weapon types in Monster Hunter Wilds, and while all of them are very powerful, they play completely different from one another. So I want to quickly talk you through all of them and their respective playstyles so you'll know exactly which weapon is right for you when you head out into the wilds. Starting with the lightning fast dual blades, which I consider an excellent weapon if this is your first Monster Hunter. Combat in the series is a bit slower than most modern action games, but not when you are using this weapon type. Your basic attacks are already pretty fast, but your main mechanic is entering a stance called Demon Mode, which gives you access to new and even faster combos, including a dash attack for extra mobility. While active, the mode drains your stamina, so you're constantly switching between normal for recovery and then Demon Mode for DPS. You'll also notice there's a special meter that fills when you hit attacks in Demon Mode, and when that is filled up, you also get some new combo attacks for your regular stance. So even though it's a relatively simple weapon, there's already quite a lot of depth to it. One final note, each weapon has received new special attacks to trigger on the wounds you now create if you keep hitting a monster in the same spot. I'm not going to go over all of them, but this kickoff into blade spin attack for the dual blades is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. So pick this weapon if you like to be quick on your feet and unleash a barrage of fast and acrobatic attacks. And then on the complete opposite end of that spectrum, we have the Greatsword. This massive weapon is capable of hitting the highest damage numbers on a single attack, but as you might expect, the windups for these attacks are pretty lengthy. Luckily, Monster Hunter Wilds' new focus mode allows you to better redirect your heavy swings, so for returning players, the weapon will feel a lot more forgiving. But still, a Greatsword user really needs to play around a monster, learning when to dodge and keep his distance, and when it is safe to unleash some devastating attacks. You can also use the massive blade as a shield to guard from attacks, and you can cancel out of charging a swing with a shoulder tackle that doesn't deal a lot of damage but can stagger a monster out of an attack if you're lucky. New for Wilds is a special charged uppercut that you can use to counter incoming attacks. So while the combos are simple, the Greatsword itself is still an incredibly versatile weapon with the potential for some insane damage numbers. Now let's move on to another weapon I consider a good starting point if you're new to the series, the Insect Glaive. This bladed staff has some decently fast combos on the ground, but the key feature that sets it apart is the fact that you can use the weapon to vault yourself up into the air, giving you access to some spectacular aerial attacks. Of course, jumping is also an excellent way to dodge a monster's attack and reposition yourself, or you can try to drop on a creature's back and go for a mount, where you wear it out in a short minigame until you bring it crashing to the ground. Now, I've sort of explained the glaive part of the weapon there, but you also get a small insect friend who plays a vital role in the weapon's playstyle. Basically, you send it out to attack different parts of the monster, which won't deal much damage, but it will bring back an extract that gives you a small buff. Each monster has 3 different extracts, and once all 3 are collected, you enter an empowered state that also upgrades your aerial combos. This buff is crucial to getting the most out of the weapon, so there is a bit of a learning curve there, but since your insect body can extract from range, you can do this while staying out of harm's way. And luckily, your crosshair in Wilds now displays which buff you get from the part you're currently aiming at, meaning you don't have to guess where you have to hit the monster to gather all 3. If you like leaping over attacks, assaulting the enemy from the air, and toppling monsters with a mount so you can go ham on them, there is no better weapon than the Insect Glaive. My personal favorite weapon, however, is the Charge Blade, which is effectively 2 weapons in one. You start out using a sword and shield, with each attack you hit building up energy in these little vials you can see on the HUD. You can then store that energy and use it for various things, like empowering your shield or enhancing your blade with elemental energy, but the main use for these charges is to empower the attacks of the Charge Blade's axe mode. Because yes, you can combine the sword and shield to create a massive axe which can then use the energy from your vials for powerful elemental explosions. So yeah, you can switch on the fly between 2 weapon types, and there are even attacks that allow you to change mid-combo. To make matters even more insane, there are several attacks that change the top of the axe into a spinning saw blade, like the special attack you perform on a wound with this weapon. While there is a learning curve to the Charge Blade, since you're effectively learning 2 weapons at the same time, it is an incredibly rewarding weapon to learn, and once you master it, you can do anything from solid defense to devastating offense. If you'd rather keep your distance, there are some ranged weapons you can pick from as well. And of course, if you enjoyed the video so far, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more Monster Hunter content. So yeah, Monster Hunter has some ranged ranged weapons, although they of course feel very different from melee weapons since you'll be aiming your attacks with a crosshair. Definitely the most stylish out of the ranged weapons is the bow, a versatile and consistent damage dealer with some good mobility as well. Your main resource is displayed by this gauge on the right side of the screen, and it is primarily used for two things. One is coating your arrows with various empowering effects, such as increased damage or status effects. The other is firing a tracer arrow that then causes all subsequent attacks to hone in on the tracer. You then refill the gauge by attacking or by perfectly dodging an incoming attack, which also looks really cool by the way. And since you can seamlessly blend together shots and dodges, you're pretty hard to pin down too. The bow has access to all kinds of special shots, like raining down a barrage of arrows, but the most powerful one is the Dragon Piercer. This charged shot pierces through a monster completely, dealing damage along the way, so the longer the line it makes, the more damage it deals. So if you want to feel like Legolas, hunting down creatures 10 times your size with awesome arrow tricks and graceful moves, then the bow is what you want to go with. But if you really want to keep a monster down and make sure it never gets back up again, then there is no better tool than the hammer. As strange as it feels to say it, the hammer is almost Monster Hunter's version of a crowd control weapon. Since it deals blunt damage, its attacks will work towards exhausting a monster, limiting their stamina and tiring them out. Continuous hits on the head will also build up stun damage until you eventually knock a monster to the ground, setting you up for some nice free hits. While bulking a giant lizard on the head with a massive hammer is immediately fun, there's actually a surprising amount of depth to the hammer. Many of your attacks can be charged and triggered at multiple levels, leading into different attacks that can sometimes combo into other charged attacks as well. It is of course a bit on the slower side, but once you stun a monster and knock it to the ground, that's no longer a problem. So if you want to bash and beat down anything that stands in your path with a ton of potential combos to learn and master, then you should definitely give the hammer a try. Now for something explosive, let's look at the Gunlance. It's a very unique weapon in that it combines both melee and ranged attacks, plus you get some amazing defensive options too, thanks to the shield that's also part of the weapon set. The Gunlance is a very versatile weapon, as you can pepper a monster with shells from the cannon while keeping a safe distance, or you can charge in with various piercing and slashing lance attacks. You can even combo swinging and firing in between hits for some truly devastating combos, and when you want to put down the real pain, you have two types of alternative ammo that pack a really big punch. Wyvern Fire is a charged blast that releases a big damaging explosion, perfect for when a creature is incapacitated. And Wyvern Stake is an exploding spear that you impale into a monster and then it detonates after a short delay. Now if you want to keep using the blasting capabilities of the Gunlance, you need to keep reloading it, but there are multiple attacks that you can chain into a quicker reload so you don't have to stop your assault. While not the easiest weapon to get into, the Gunlance offers great defensive options as well as very strong melee and short to medium range damage. If you can wrap your head around the different combos, you'll find that this weapon really is a ton of fun. But the ultimate king of combos and flashy attacks is the Longsword. Don't let the size of the blade fool you, as this is actually a pretty quick weapon with a large and diverse set of moves at its disposal. The main gameplay loop of the weapon revolves around the spirit gauge, so this icon on the HUD, which you fill with regular attacks and then you spend the resource on special attacks and combos. Hitting these special attacks in turn levels up your spirit gauge, as you can see by the change in color, until it reaches the red state, during which you unlock another set of new moves and attacks. So you need to stay on the offensive to keep this buff up, although you can also increase your spirit gauge level by performing a counter, which requires some good timing, as you need to sheath your sword first, then press the button when an attack is about to hit you. The coolest move by far, however, is the Helmbreaker, which launches you up into the air and then you aim where you want to strike down, triggering a delayed series of strikes to the part you hit. Very satisfying to pull off, and as I said, there are way more cool attacks you can perform with the Longsword. So if you want a weapon that's not too slow, has some great reach, and an extended list of moves and combos to account for any situation, look no further than this one. And while it is a versatile weapon, the true jack of all trades in Monster Hunter is the sword and shield. As the name suggests, this weapon has access to a shield that allows you to block incoming attacks, and sometimes a successful block allows you to engage in the new clash mechanic, which is a nice way to get some free hits in and keep a monster occupied. The sword has some fast and lengthy combos, which you can follow up with a hop back and a leaping lunge forward that launches you into the air if it connects. While the damage of individual hits is low, you'll be able to output impressive amounts of damage thanks to how frequently you are able to hit. So that already makes the sword and shield a mobile weapon with both strong offense and defense, but the real versatility comes from the fact that you can use your items while you are holding the weapon. Normally, you have to sheath your weapon before you can grab and use an item, but with the sword and shield, you can directly access all of your consumables without lowering your blade. That means faster heals, faster recovery from status effects, and the ability to quickly place bombs and traps mid-fight. While the weapon combos are easy to master, this added ability means the skill ceiling for the sword and shield is nearly limitless. So if you want a versatile weapon that is easy to pick up but has a ton of potential, you can't go wrong with the sword and shield. Now, I've mentioned a couple of weapons that have access to a shield, but the true master of blocking and defense has got to be the lance. If you like playing tanks in other games, this weapon is perfect for you, as it allows you to stand your ground and keep chipping away at a monster's weak spots. While it might not be as flashy as the other weapons, the lance allows you to keep attacking specific areas with a quick combo of thrusts. And whenever a monster threatens you, you can either quickly block or enter a counter stance where you can immediately hit back if a creature hits you. Instead of dodging, the lance gives you access to a small hop to the back, front or sides when you press the dodge button. And while that initially seems like a downgrade, it's a really good trick to quickly reposition yourself and stick on those weak spots. You can still use your regular dodge by sheathing your weapon, but as a lance user, you'd rather use your block to counter an attack anyway. So if you want to stand your ground as an immovable bastion while you precisely target a monster's weak spot, I think you'll really enjoy the lance. And while the lance is comparable to a tank class, there's another weapon that fills a role likely familiar to you. It's the hunting horn, and it is widely considered to be the ultimate support weapon thanks to its ability to distribute party-wide buffs. But don't let that description fool you, as this blunt instrument, pardon the pun, can deal some excellent damage as well. In fact, supporting is not a passive playstyle in Monster Hunter, as you need to attack in order to apply those buffs I mentioned. Each attack corresponds with a certain musical note, which you then store to perform a song. Each hunting horn has multiple songs they can perform to apply buffs to you and other hunters within your range. To add even more support capabilities, the hunting horn has a new skill called an echo bubble. You have 3 of these AoE circles you can place on the field, granting a buff depending on your currently equipped horn to everyone inside the circle. Playing or attacking inside the circle will also increase damage to a monster, which again proves that the hunting horn is capable of way more than just support. So if you like the idea of bringing the dude, applying buffs to your party while still dishing out great damage, your best bet is absolutely the hunting horn. Now, even though the hunting horn is very unique, if you really want something special, you should have a look at the switch axe. Like the charge blade, this is a weapon with 2 forms, with one being a massive axe and the other being an even more impressive greatsword. As you might expect, this is not a fast weapon, although the speed at which your hunter is able to swing the axe around is still very impressive. Every attack that connects builds up this sword gauge, which fuels the attacks you perform while in the sword mode. While using the weapon in this form, you build up a second charge marked on the outside of the HUD icon. Once it is full, you are able to perform a special attack where you stick your blade in the side of a monster and vent all the built up energy into a massive explosion. A very satisfying and powerful move to pull off, so if this high damage explosive playstyle looks like fun to you, then you should main the switch axe. Now, the next 2 weapons I'm going to discuss together, as while they have their differences, the light and heavy bowgun also share many similar mechanics. Like the bow, these weapons feel very different, as you aim with the crosshair and have access to different types of ammo to apply various types of damage and debuffs. Some ammo types, like regular ammo or the shotgun-like spread shot, are unlimited, but more specialized things like elemental ammo need to be crafted or bought. Which is something to keep in mind with both of these weapons. They require a bit more inventory management than, say, a greatsword. Still, your ability to consistently dish out elemental damage or target specific spots of a monster should not be underestimated. Where the 2 weapons differ is, for example, in their mobility, as the light bowgun has a much quicker dodge roll than the heavy. But the heavy compensates by having a shield on the weapon that you can use to block incoming attacks. Both weapons also have some firing modes unique to them, so if you want a more mobile close range playstyle, pick the light bowgun, and if you want to dig in, defend yourself and take shots from afar, then the heavy bowgun is the pick for you. Let me know which weapon you're going to pick and try, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to not miss other Monster Hunter Wilds tips and tricks. If you want, you can watch another Monster Hunter video video of ours by clicking on the screen, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye!